I never thought I'd become a stranger in my own mother's life. My name is Lillian Grayson, and I'm 27 years old. For most of my life, it was just me, my mom, and my dad living in a modest but cozy home in Portland. We weren't rich, but we were happy. My dad was an engineer, my mom a school teacher, and together they built a life that, though simple, was filled with love. I was always close to my mother. She was my best friend, my confidant, the person I could always turn to. We had traditions: Friday night movies with popcorn, Sunday morning breakfasts at our favorite diner, long talks over coffee when the world felt too heavy. My father used to joke that we were like two halves of the same coin, always in sync, always understanding each other without needing words. But then he died. 5 years ago, a heart attack took him from us with no warning. One moment, he was laughing at the dinner table, telling us about his day at work, and the next, he was gone. Just like that. The house, once filled with warmth, felt cold and empty. My mother changed that day. At first, she clung to me like a lifeline. We grieved together, cried together, held on to each other because we were all we had left. But over time, something shifted. She became distant, throwing herself into work, spending more time alone, avoiding the things we used to do together. I told myself it was just part of her healing process, that eventually we'd find our way back to each other. I was wrong. 2 years after my father's passing, my mother met Richard. He was charming, confident, the kind of man who walked into a room and commanded attention without saying a word. He had an easy smile, expensive suits, and a presence that made people lean in when he spoke. I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. She deserved love again. She deserved someone to make her feel alive. But Richard wasn't the problem. Sophia was. Richard's daughter was everything I wasn't: polished, poised, and breathtakingly beautiful. She had long, chestnut hair that never seemed out of place, bright green eyes that sparkled under any light, and a voice that made every word she spoke sound like a melody. She had a way of making people feel special, important, like they were the only person in the world when she spoke to them. And my mother fell for her completely. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. It was natural for my mom to want to bond with Sophia. After all, we were becoming a family, right? I tried to welcome her, even went out of my way to make her feel comfortable. But the more time passed, the more I realized something unsettling. I wasn't gaining a sister. I was losing my mother. Suddenly, our Friday movie nights became shopping trips for Sophia. Our morning coffee chats turned into long lunches where my mother gushed about how wonderful, talented, and beautiful Sophia was. She started calling her my sweet girl, a name she hadn't used for me in years. The worst part? Sophia knew exactly what she was doing. She never pushed me out directly. She didn't need to. It was always subtle. The way she'd show up at our house unannounced, and my mother would drop everything to be with her. The way she'd mention little inside jokes that I wasn't part of. The way my mother's eyes lit up when she talked about her, in a way they never did for me anymore. I told myself it was just a phase. That I was being paranoid. That my mother still loved me the same way she always had. Then she got engaged to Richard. That was when everything changed. When my mother announced her engagement to Richard, I knew this was my chance. For months, I had felt myself slipping further and further away from her. Every time we talked, it seemed like she had less and less to say to me and more to say about Sophia, how helpful she was, how thoughtful, how lucky she felt to have her as a stepdaughter. Every conversation became about her. I was drowning in my own mother's indifference, and I needed to do something to pull myself back into her world. So when she casually mentioned that she wasn't sure how to handle the wedding planning, I seized the opportunity. "Let me do it," I said. She hesitated. "Oh, sweetheart, I don't want to burden you with all that. Weddings are so much work, and you're already busy with your own life." I wasn't busy. Not in a way that mattered. My job as a freelance graphic designer gave me flexible hours, and I had no serious commitments tying me down. If anything, I had too much time to think about how much I was losing her. "It's not a burden," I insisted. "I want to do it." "I know you, Mom. I know exactly what would make you happy. Let me plan the perfect wedding for you." Her expression softened, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw a flicker of the mother I used to know. The one who trusted me, who believed in me. "You'd really do that for me?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "It'll be my wedding gift to you." She pulled me into a hug, and I closed my eyes, savoring the moment. This was it. This was how I would remind her that I was still her daughter. The one who loved her the most. The one who knew her better than anyone else. The one she should have never forgotten. I threw myself into planning, dedicating every spare moment to making sure the wedding would be perfect. I researched venues, called florists, tested caterers. I agonized over color schemes, decorations, music selections. Every detail mattered. I wasn't just planning a wedding, I was proving myself. Proving that I was still the most important person in her life. She had chosen me to do this. She trusted me. That meant something. I worked late into the nights, my apartment covered in fabric swatches, seating charts, and vendor contracts. I spent hours debating whether ivory or champagne tablecloths would better match the floral arrangements. I stressed over the menu, making sure every dish was something my mother would love. I coordinated schedules, negotiated with vendors, handled every little crisis that popped up. And through it all, my mother never once asked how things were going. She never called to check in. Never texted to see if I needed help. At first, I convinced myself that this was a good thing. After all, hadn't she said she trusted me? Hadn't she told me she wanted to be surprised? But as the weeks passed, a small, nagging doubt began to creep into my mind. It wasn't just that she wasn't asking me about the wedding. It was that every time I brought it up, she would say something strange. "Oh, Sophia mentioned that already." Mentioned? Mentioned? It kept happening. Every time I brought up the venue, the flowers, the catering, she would nod absent-mindedly and say, "Oh, yes, Sophia was just telling me about that." At first, I thought I had misheard. Then I thought it was a coincidence. But the more it happened, the more it became clear my mother wasn't associating this wedding with me. She was associating it with Sophia. One night, about a month before the wedding, I stopped by my mother's house to finalize a few last details. Richard was out of town for work, and I knew Sophia wouldn't be around, so I figured it would be a good chance for some one-on-one time. I had just finished pouring us some tea when she smiled and said, "I don't know how I would have managed all of this without her." My stomach twisted. "Without who?" I asked carefully. "Sophia," she said warmly, stirring her tea. "She's been so amazing throughout this whole process. I swear, I don't know how she finds the time to do everything." I felt my heart hammer in my chest. Sophia? I had spent the past 3 months killing myself over every detail of this wedding. Sophia hadn't done a single thing. I forced a smile. "What do you mean?" "Oh, just how involved she's been," my mother said. "She's so organized, always thinking ahead. I'm just so lucky to have her." I stared at her, gripping my cup so tightly my knuckles turned white. This was a joke. This had to be a joke. I had done everything. And Sophia was getting the credit? No, this was just a misunderstanding. Maybe Sophia had just been asking Mom about the wedding, and Mom had misinterpreted it as involvement. Maybe it was nothing. I told myself not to overthink it. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself Mom would never forget what I was doing for her. I was wrong. A few days later, I found out exactly how wrong I was. I was at my apartment, finalizing the guest list, when my phone buzzed. It was my cousin, Ben. "Hey, did you know Mom is telling people that Sophia planned the wedding?" My heart stopped. "What? Who told you that?" Ben said, "I was at dinner with her and Richard last night. She was talking about how grateful she was for everything Sophia has done, how she's been a lifesaver with the planning. Richard was going on about how impressive it is that she's juggling this while still managing her career. I felt physically sick. I had done everything. Everything. Sophia had done nothing. And yet, somehow, she had my mother convinced that this entire wedding was her doing. How? Why? I gripped my phone so tightly it nearly slipped from my hand. I wanted to call my mother immediately, to demand an explanation, to scream at her for not seeing the truth. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew what would happen. She wouldn't believe me. She would tell me I was overreacting. She would defend Sophia. I couldn't afford to have that conversation yet. Not until I had proof. Not until I knew exactly how deep this betrayal went. And so, I did something I had never done before. I started watching, listening, taking notes. I started paying attention to every conversation, every little remark, every moment where Sophia took what was mine and claimed it as hers. And the more I saw, the more furious I became. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She had stolen my mother from me. She had stolen my work, my efforts, my love. And at the wedding, I would find out just how far she had gone. The wedding day arrived in a golden haze of morning sunlight and the crisp scent of fresh-cut flowers. Everything was perfect. I had made sure of it. I walked through the venue early, checking every last detail. The ivory table linens, the delicate floral arrangements, the custom candlelit centerpieces. I had planned, designed, and coordinated all of it. Every ribbon, every petal, every carefully selected song playing in the background had passed through my hands first. This was my work. This was my love, wrapped up in a day that was supposed to bring me closer to my mother again. I wanted to see her eyes light up when she stepped into the reception hall. I wanted her to turn to me, even just for a moment, and say, "You did this. Thank you, sweetheart." I had done it all for her. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Sophia. She stood by her side, smiling, laughing, glowing as guests approached them. As if they had built this day together. I tried to tell myself that it didn't matter. That once the evening settled in, once the speeches were given, once my mother saw how flawlessly everything had come together, she would realize, she would know, that it had been me. Then came the toast. The reception hall hummed with soft laughter and clinking glasses as people settled into their seats, their plates filled, their voices relaxed from the first few rounds of wine. My mother stood at the head of the table, lifting her champagne flute, a beaming smile on her face. A hush fell over the room. "I just want to take a moment," she said, her voice warm, filled with emotion, "to thank the person who made this magical day possible." My stomach twisted. This was it. This was my moment. She turned, smiling radiantly. "Sophia." Applause erupted. My breath hitched, just for a second, just long enough for the weight of it to sink in. "I couldn't have done this without you," she continued, her voice brimming with pride. "You have been my rock through this entire process. Every detail, every perfect touch, it's all because of you." Sophia smiled modestly, ducking her head in false humility. A little blush of embarrassment, as if she had no idea she was about to receive this kind of recognition. As if she hadn't orchestrated the entire thing from the beginning. I sat there, frozen in place, my hands curled into fists under the table. Not a single mention of me. Not even a glance in my direction. I felt my heart hammering in my chest, but the room had blurred around me. The applause, the cheers, the laughter, it all blurred into one indistinct roar, as if I had been dropped into an ocean with waves crashing over my head. I had done everything. Everything. And she had taken it. And my mother had let her. I forced a smile. I clapped along with the rest of the room. I felt my own hands move, as if they belonged to someone else, the applause echoing in my ears like a dull, distant sound. Across the table, Sophia's eyes flickered to mine, just for a second. And she smirked. It was small. barely there. But I saw it. A silent acknowledgement. She knew exactly what she had done. And she was proud of it. I swallowed down the lump in my throat, blinking hard, willing the burning behind my eyes to fade. This wasn't the time. This wasn't the place. This was my mother's wedding, and I wouldn't ruin it. But I would remember. I would remember everything. And I would make sure that she remembered, too. I didn't sleep that night. Long after the last guest had left, long after the music had faded and the tables had been cleared, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the evening like a broken film reel. The applause. The look on Sophia's face. The way my mother had smiled at her, proud, adoring, as if she had handed her the greatest gift of her life. A gift that I had given. The betrayal sat in my chest like a heavy stone, pressing against my ribs, making every breath feel like an effort. I had spent months pouring everything into that wedding, my time, my money, my energy, just to be erased in front of a room full of people. And for what? So Sophia could play the role of the perfect daughter? So my mother could continue the fantasy that she had gained something better than what she already had? I clenched my jaw, my fists tightening against the sheets. No, this wasn't going to stand. I wasn't going to let her take this from me. I wasn't going to let my mother believe this lie. The next afternoon, I drove to my mother's house. She and Richard had planned to leave for their honeymoon the following morning, which meant this was my only chance to say what I needed to say. The door was unlocked when I arrived, probably left open for the florist who was supposed to come by and pick up the leftover arrangements. I stepped inside, my pulse hammering. She was in the living room, folding clothes into a suitcase. When she looked up and saw me, her face lit up. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, reaching for me. "Wasn't last night just beautiful?" I didn't move. Her arms hovered in the space between us before she let them drop. Her smile faltered. "What's wrong?" I swallowed hard, my voice sharper than I intended. "We need to talk." Her brows knitted together, and she sighed, rubbing her temples. "Lillian, if this is about yesterday, It's about Sophia." She stilled. "What about her?" I stepped forward, my fingers curling into my palms. "She didn't plan your wedding, Mom." "I did." A pause. Then she laughed, a light, dismissive sound, as if I had just told her the most ridiculous joke she'd ever heard. "Lillian, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that I spent months planning every detail. The venue, the catering, the flowers. You didn't even want to be involved. You told me to take care of everything." I exhaled, my chest tight with frustration. "And I did. I made sure it was perfect. For you. And then you stood up in front of everyone and gave Sophia the credit." She shook her head, waving a hand. "No, sweetheart. You must be confused." I'm not confused." My voice cracked, louder than I meant for it to be. I took a breath, forcing myself to steady. "I heard you say it, Mom. I sat there and watched you thank her for everything I did." Her expression hardened. "This jealousy of yours is getting out of hand." I stared at her. "Jealousy? That's what she thought this was?" She folded her arms, her voice suddenly sharp. "Sophia stepped in when you didn't. She worked so hard to make sure the wedding was exactly how I wanted it. She was there for me. You weren't." The word struck like a slap. I could barely breathe. I had been there. I had given everything. And yet she stood there, looking me in the eyes, telling me that Sophia was the one who had cared. That Sophia was the better daughter. I swallowed against the burn in my throat. "She lied to you," I said, my voice quieter now, but no less firm. "She didn't do anything. She just took credit for my work. And you believed her without ever asking me about it. She wouldn't lie to me." The finality in her tone was like a door slamming shut. My breath hitched. That was it. That was her choice. She had picked Sophia over me. I took a step back, shaking my head. "You know what, Mom?" My voice trembled. "Believe whatever you want. But one day, you're going to realize the truth. And when that day comes, I swallowed. I hope it hurts. For a moment, I thought I saw something crack in her expression. But I didn't stay to find out. I turned and walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. I didn't expect an apology. Not really. Even after I walked out of my mother's house, even after I let the door slam behind me, even after I spent the rest of the day sitting in my car, staring at nothing, I knew she wouldn't come after me. I knew she wouldn't call. Because she had made her choice. And it wasn't me. For the next few days, I tried to let it go. I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. That my mother was too blinded by Sophia's carefully constructed lies to see the truth. But the anger burned inside me, hot and relentless, refusing to fade. And when I got the text from Ben, I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. Hey, just a heads up. Sophia's birthday party is today. Your mom and Richard are throwing a big thing for her at the house. Everyone's invited. Except you, apparently. I stared at my phone, my grip tightening. Not surprised. Not hurt. Just furious. Because of course my mother had moved on without me. Of course she had decided that the perfect stepdaughter deserved a lavish celebration while I was quietly erased from the family like I had never existed. I almost texted back something bitter. Something sharp enough to cut. But then I glanced at my desk. At the folder sitting there, thick with proof. Emails. Receipts. Contracts. Everything I had collected in the weeks leading up to the wedding, the proof that I had done everything. That Sophia had done nothing. My pulse pounded. I had been patient. I had been silent. I had let her take what was mine. But not anymore. Not after this. I picked up the folder, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. It was time to end this. The party was already in full swing when I arrived. Music spilled out into the night, the warm glow of string lights illuminating the front yard. Laughter echoed from inside the house, overlapping voices carrying through the open windows. I walked up the driveway, my fingers tightening around the folder. When I reached the front door, I didn't hesitate. I knocked once. Twice. The noise inside quieted, and then, a few seconds later, the door swung open. Sophia stood there, dressed in a sleek, perfect outfit, her hair swept into effortless waves. When she saw me, her smile flickered. Then she laughed. "Well, this is a surprise," she said, tilting her head. "Did you come to crash my party?" I stared at her, my jaw tight. "I need to talk to Mom." She sighed dramatically. "Lillian, I get it. You're upset. But can't we just get out of my way, Sophia?" For the first time, something shifted in her expression. A flicker of uncertainty. I stepped forward, pushing past her into the house. The room fell silent as I entered. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, guests holding champagne flutes, relatives frozen mid-conversation, my mother sitting on the couch with Richard beside her. I felt all of it. The tension. The expectation. Sophia followed me inside, her tone all false concern. "Lillian, you're making a scene." I ignored her. Instead, I looked straight at my mother. And I spoke. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice steady. "But I have something to say." Richard frowned. "Lillian, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time." I lifted the folder. "Because I'm done letting her lie to you." My mother's face tensed. "What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath. And then I laid out the truth. "I planned your wedding." My voice didn't shake. It didn't waver. It rang through the room, clear and sharp. Not Sophia. Me. I booked the venue. I hired the caterers. I spent weeks making sure every detail was exactly what you wanted. I pulled out the first contract from the folder. "Here's the receipt for the flowers. Paid for with my credit card." I dropped it onto the table. "Here's the email confirming the catering menu. Sent from my account." Another page. The finalized seating chart? Created by me. One by one, I laid out every piece of evidence. Emails. Text messages. Screenshots of conversations with vendors. Every single detail. Every single thing that proved that Sophia had done nothing. The silence in the room was suffocating. I turned to Sophia, my heart pounding. "Go on," I said, my voice calm, but edged with steel. "Tell them how you let her believe it was all you. Tell them how you stood at the reception and took the credit for something you had nothing to do with." Sophia's face had gone pale. She opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time, she had no words. And then, "Is this true?" The voice was quiet, unsteady. It was my mother. Her hands were clenched together in her lap, her expression shifting, shock, confusion, something else. I looked at her, really looked at her, waiting. Sophia swallowed hard. "Mom, is it true?" The silence stretched. Then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, Sophia whispered, "Yes." A gasp rippled through the room. Richard turned to her, his face dark with disbelief. "You told me you planned the whole thing." Sophia's voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Mom slowly shook her head. "I trusted you." Her voice was quieter now, but filled with something raw. Sophia looked at me, her face twisting in something like panic. "You have no idea what you've done," she hissed. I just stared at her. And then I turned to leave. Because I had already won. I walked out of that house with my head held high. The night air was cool against my skin, but I barely felt it. My heart was pounding, my body still buzzing from the adrenaline of it all. I had done it. I had told the truth. And for the first time in months, they had listened. Behind me, voices rose in urgent whispers, muffled questions, hurried apologies, the quiet unraveling of everything Sophia had built for herself. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had spent so long feeling invisible, so long waiting for someone to see me. And now they had. A few days passed before my mother finally called. I hesitated before answering. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let her sit with the weight of what had happened. But the other part, the part that still, despite everything, wanted to believe in her, picked up the phone. There was a long silence before she spoke. "Lillian," she said quietly. "I don't even know where to start." I closed my eyes. "How about with the truth?" Another pause. Then, a soft, tired sigh. "I was so blind," she admitted. "I let her manipulate me, and I didn't see it. I didn't even think to ask you. I just assumed." I waited. "I hurt you," she whispered. "And I'm so sorry." For the first time in weeks, maybe months, something inside me softened. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. "You believed her over me," I said, my voice quieter now. "I gave you everything. And you erased me like I didn't matter." "I know," she said, her voice thick. "I can't take that back. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see everything." I exhaled, my grip tightening on the phone. "Why did you choose her?" She was silent for so long I almost thought she wouldn't answer. Then, finally, "She made me feel like I wasn't losing something," she admitted. "Like I was gaining something instead." A pang hit my chest. She had been afraid of losing me. And in trying to fill that void, she had lost me anyway. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I admitted. "I understand." Her voice broke. "But I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. If you'll let me." I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. Trust wasn't something that could be restored overnight. But maybe, just maybe, it could be rebuilt. As for Sophia, she lost everything. Her carefully crafted image, her reputation, the admiration she had stolen. Richard was furious. Not just for the lie, but for all of it, the manipulation, the deceit, the way she had turned my mother against me. The family that had once adored her now saw her for what she truly was. Even her boyfriend, Lucas, walked away. I heard through Ben that she tried to spin the story, tried to paint herself as the victim. But the evidence was too strong. The truth had already won. And she had lost. I'd like to say that my mother and I went back to how things were before. that we fell into our old rhythms, our old traditions. But the truth was we couldn't. Too much had happened. Too much had been said, too many wounds left to heal. But we were trying. We started meeting for coffee again, small steps, small conversations. She listened more. She asked more. She stopped talking about Sophia. She started talking about me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I mattered again. I didn't need her approval anymore. I didn't need validation. I had already found it in myself. But maybe, just maybe, she was finding her way back to me too.